From Beyond Marketing, it's the 20-Minute Call, a podcast about the dreamers, boundary pushers, rebels, and champions of the skydiving industry. Each episode is a narrative journey highlighted by the highs, lows, and luck that the skydiving industry delivers, as told by the most influential people within the sport. If you've ever dreamed of becoming a skydiver, perhaps opening a drop zone, or becoming the next world champion, check out the 20-Minute Call hosted by me, James LeBarry. Today I have the pleasure of introducing an accomplished pilot, skydiver, adventurer, Ashley Marquardt. In just 6 years since earning her commercial pilot's license, Ashley has progressed from flying a Cessna 182 at Skydive Cross Keys to now becoming a Twin Otter pilot at Skydive Dubai, a remarkable ascent in the world of skydiving aviation. Before taking on the skies of Dubai, she flew both Romeo and Juliet as the main pilot at Skydive Cross Keys, and even worked as a cargo pilot in Saipan, flying critical supplies, everything from mail and Amazon packages to even McDonald's French fries, over the ocean between Saipan, Guam, and the surrounding islands. Ashley's passion for aviation and adventure runs deep. She grew up on a military base in South Korea for 10 years before eventually discovering skydiving in 2008, where legendary skydiver Kirk Knight taught her how to jump. Since then, she's become a tandem instructor, an experienced wingsuiter. She's an excellent freeflyer and base jumper. Her love for the water is just as strong. Before her career in aviation took off, Ashley worked as a scuba dive instructor and remains an adventurous diver to this day. Whether she's piloting jumpers to altitude, leading tandems, or carving through the sky in a wingsuit, Ashley embodies the spirit of adventure and progression. With her dynamic background and fearless approach to life, she continues to inspire both in the cockpit and in freefall. I'm excited to welcome Ashley Marquardt to the 20-Minute Call podcast. Hey, Ashley.
Hey.
How are you doing?
Pretty good.
You're sitting in a room, and I can see there's a map behind you. Where are you speaking to me from?
I'm actually in our chief pilot's office at the hangar where we keep all of our airplanes and where the maintenance is and all of that.
At Skydive Dubai?
Yeah, so we have 3 different kind of airports here. We have the Palm drop zone has a runway. We have the Desert drop zone has a runway. And then our maintenance hangar is actually at a different airport, a private airport in Nad Al Shiba, it's called. And basically it's just a hangar on a compound where we keep all of our aircraft and where the mechanics do all of their work. So yeah, basically just in the morning we come here to Nad Al Shiba, we pick up our aircraft for the day, and then we fly it to whichever drop zone we are working at for the day. How
many pilots work at that operation?
14. 14
Wow.
pilots and 5 airplanes right now. We had 6 at the beginning of the season, but we sent one to Spain. So now we have 5 Otters and 14 pilots, yeah.
Tell me about how did you get into working at Skydive Dubai? How did that opportunity come to be?
Well, it kind of goes back, the idea of it kind of goes back to, I was here as a fun jumper in 2015, and I really loved it here. It was actually pretty cool. One of their planes had an accident right before we got here. And so when I got here, we went to the Palm, and they were saying, oh, we aren't going to do fun jumpers at the Palm. We don't have a plane. And we were devastated because we had booked a trip here just to jump at the Palm. Then actually they ended up bringing in a helicopter. So I think I did 12 jumps out of a helicopter over the Palm during that weekend. And I remember at one point during that trip saying, I'm going to work here one day. And I wasn't a pilot at the time. I wasn't even a tandem instructor at the time. And then I was in Saipan, and my now husband and I were just kind of looking for something new. Skydiving wasn't as busy as it had been previously, so we were just kind of looking for a new adventure. And another one of our pilots from Saipan actually moved here a little bit before, so I kind of got the idea from her. Speaking to her, she really enjoyed it, and her husband is a tandem instructor, so they both were really enjoying it. So yeah, we decided to do it. I applied and I got the job, and now I'm here.
Amazing. So before we progress forward and also backwards of how you got to this point, let's go way back. You grew up in Seoul, Korea, as I mentioned. I assume there's a military connection here. Tell me about growing up in Seoul. I said Seoul. Really, I don't know if it's Seoul. South Korea, at least.
Yeah, it actually was in Seoul, a military base called Yongsan. It's actually closed now, which is kind of crazy. I went there not too long ago, and the whole, where I went to high school is completely overgrown and everything, so the whole military base is closed. It's kind of insane. But yeah, we moved there when I was 8, I think. And I left when I graduated high school, which is pretty uncommon for the military to stay in one place for so long. But we really enjoyed it there, and we got lucky. So, it was pretty cool. The military base is right kind of in the middle of Seoul. So, of course, while I spent most of my time on the military base, I still had little adventures off. I played a lot of sports. We traveled a lot. I enjoyed my growing up.
Where are you originally from?
I was born in Colorado, but I lived in Panama for a little while when I was, I think, 2 years old. I lived in Panama for a little while with my mom. Then back to the States for a little while, lived in Florida. My mom was stationed there for the military, and then made the move to Seoul. We were supposed to go to Germany originally, but then last minute they changed everything, which was actually kind of funny because all of our stuff was on the way to Germany already. And then they switched my mom's assignment and we ended up in Korea.
Your mom's badass.
Yeah, she retired as a colonel.
Yeah, I even read that I don't know if the record still exists, but she was part of a Guinness World Record for most tandems in a day. Is that right?
Yeah, I was there for that, actually. Yeah, the most tandems in 24 hours, I believe they did 103.
And was she a passenger for all 103 jumps?
She was the passenger, and her good friend Chip Bolin, who was also on the SOCOM team, he was the instructor.
Why did she want to do that?
I don't know. They were quite the pair. They came up with some crazy ideas, and I don't know. Somehow it just got in their head, and they made it happen. It was quite an effort, that's for sure.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
So what kind of kid were you? How would you describe yourself, your younger self?
I would say, I don't know, a lot different than I am now. Believe it or not, I was a cheerleader. I was a varsity cheerleader, which most people that know me well think that's insane. But I played a lot of sports. I hung out with my friends. I was pretty outgoing. Yeah, I had a lot of friends. Either was at some sort of practice or was with my friends. I think my mom helped me out with that kind of aspect. She always pushed me to experience things and do things. And like I said earlier, we traveled a lot. So I got to experience a bunch of different countries and things like that when I was a kid. So it kind of opened up my eyes to there being more.
Fascinating. What do you recall most, or is there any aspect of growing up in South Korea that would be totally foreign to someone growing up, say, in the States that's just so different, or anything that stands out to you for all of high school? And do you speak Korean?
I used to speak Korean, yes. I lost a lot of it. My husband will tell you that I still speak it, but I think it's more embarrassment than anything. It's been so long since I've been there, so I can still read and write. Like, I could read a whole book, but I couldn't necessarily tell you exactly what it means. I can order food. But as far as it being, everything's different, really. It's normal to me, so it's kind of hard to think, because I didn't live any other life, right? So it's kind of hard to think of how different it is. I guess just being around all the different cultures, different languages, and even though it was an American military base, we still had a bunch of Korean nationals that attended our school, and people from all over the place, really. So I don't know. I guess that would be the biggest thing, is just the diversity of everything, and being in a foreign country, speaking English. It was pretty easy to get around, but having to learn how to, get the things that you wanted, get in a taxi and go somewhere, read the subway map, things like that, can be a little overwhelming if you didn't live it. But
So fill in the gaps for me. After you graduate high school, I assume you came back to the U.S., is that right?
yes, so I actually had a full ride Army scholarship to go to the same school that my mom did. So I was enrolled in ROTC, and I went to the University of Missouri, which, is the same school my mom did for college and where she commissioned into the military from. And then kind of stopped going to college, so like a lot of skydivers do. I went to Florida. My mom was still stationed there. After Korea, once I graduated, she moved back to Florida. And so I went there on one of my school breaks, and I did my first tandem. And then I went back to school for a little while, and then I think it was a spring break or something. I can't remember exactly, but then I went back. And I convinced the guys at the SOCOM team to let me do AFF, which was behind my mom's back. But then I did I think a couple jumps AFF, and then I never went back to Missouri.
What were you studying for the short period of time? What was the plan in terms of a degree?
I had chosen nursing, and I can't imagine myself doing that now. But yeah, for about a year and a half, I was doing that.
What was the circumstance that led you to go to make that very first jump?
Well, I was with my boyfriend at the time, my high school sweetheart, and my mom was on the SOCOM team that was based out of Z Hills in Tampa, so she was hanging out at the drop zone a lot on the demo team, so we just went there, and the guys, as I was hanging out there, convinced me to do the tandem. I was super stoked about it. My boyfriend at the time was not as stoked about it, but we did it. We both did it together. I landed and, of course, was on top of the world. My whole life changed forever. I'm going to get my license. I'm going to do this forever. And my boyfriend was, I think, puking on the ground or something and swore he'd never do it again. So yeah, I guess basically just from hanging out with the SOCOM guys, they kind of got me into it.
If you're a DZO or DZM listening to this podcast and you're not using Burble, I've got a question. Why not? If the reason is price, what's the cost of your time? Other booking and manifest softwares are a one-size-fits-all. Burble was built from the ground up by a DZO for DZOs to maximize efficiency. Now, isn't that nice? There's no software that compares. Choose Burble. Ashley, I know you learned to skydive from Kirk Knight, who is pretty much a legend in the sport. For those that have been around the sport for a while, this name would be familiar, but I also know that there is a new generation of skydivers that don't know who he is. Would you explain who Kirk Knight was, and could you also explain what it's like hanging out with a bunch of U.S. SOCOM guys? That's not the normal peer group.
So of course, also as an 18-year-old, right? So the 18-year-old hanging out with all these grown military men, but it was actually pretty fun. They taught me a lot about being a person as well as in the skydiving world. Kirk Knight and Keith actually did the majority of my AFF at the time. Kirk, of course, he has a bajillion skydives, but he was super humble. You would have never known it. Super calm. He always made me feel really safe. Of course, I was, in the beginning, never really that nervous. I guess I didn't really, when you're a young skydiver, you don't really grasp the dangerous sides of it as much. But yeah, they taught me a lot, those guys, about safety and just being part of a team. Of course, being on time, doing everything in a certain way that you're supposed to do it. But Kirk, he was a very genuine human being. He was actually really good friends with my mom. I spent some time with him, outside of skydiving as well. We would go for dinners, go to his house. He had a room in his house that he called Ashley's room. So we spent a lot of time with him. One thing about Kirk actually is he taught me to skydive, and then maybe, 6 or 7 years after that, I taught him how to wingsuit, which was pretty cool. But yeah, I think growing up around them, skydiving really taught me a lot of discipline. It taught me, they're super safety oriented, so it really helped out with that. But they were a good bunch to be around, for sure.
I mentioned in your intro, the ascent of your career, particularly in aviation. How much do you think that your progression in not just aviation, but really your whole life is like there's milestone after milestone after milestone? How much of this is your character, your personality, versus being raised also in sort of this military structure or mindset for a family?
I think a lot of it is the way that I was raised and my personality. I'm always looking for the next thing in a way, which is why I've kind of lived like 6 different lives in the past 15 years. I'm always looking for something better. My mom taught me growing up to never really settle for anything. You can always do better. You can always do more. So I think it's just kind of ingrained in me to just always be ready for the next thing, whether it be in skydiving. I haven't jumped in a while, actually, but whether it be in skydiving, flying, I went off on my scuba adventure. So, yeah, I think most of it's just the way I grew up.
One thing that is interesting to me, Ashley, is you're very humble. And before we started recording, you admitted to being, I'm a little anxious to talk because you don't enjoy talking about yourself. Yet your accomplishments are so high, and many people would have maybe a little bit of an ego if their resume looked like yours. What about you has you so humble? Where does that come from, I suppose, is the question.
I really don't know. To me, I'm just a normal person, and I know that I've done a lot, and I know that I've accomplished a lot of things, but to me, it's not really a thing. Like I said to you earlier, when I, say for instance, I'm in a bar or, I meet someone new and they ask me what I do, I hate answering that question. I just hate it because it always comes with so many other questions, and I never want to feel like I'm more than someone else because of something that I've done in my life, because to me it's just normal. What everyone does is normal. If you don't fly planes, or you don't, skydive, that's fine. Your normal is your normal. So yeah, I'm not very good at, tooting my own horn, I guess you could say.
Before we press forward deeper into your skydiving and flying career, I want to mention your dad. Does your dad raise horses or breed horses would be the better way? Do I have that correct?
Yes. So my dad lives, my actual dad, I spent a lot of my life with my stepfather, who is a whole other story, was an amazing person. But my dad, he lives outside of Houston on a small farm where he breeds horses for dressage. So usually on the property, he's got between 25 and 30 horses at a time. They have, 4 to 6 babies a year that he does everything for, besides what the vet does. He raises them, then they wean them, they sell them. They have trainers that work with them. So yeah, I've spent a couple of summers there, and it's pretty amazing. I've seen a couple of horses be born, and then seeing them shortly after they're born, how quickly they get up, and yeah, so he does that.
How fascinating. That's super interesting. Actually, fill in the gaps for me. I first met you when you came to Skydive Carolina, I believe as a wingsuit instructor and packer. And then shortly thereafter, I left the drop zone. But can you chart your journey after you and I met in 2011, after you're at Skydive Carolina? What occupations did you work after you left?
So while I was at Skydive Carolina, I was a packer originally, and then I was doing some wingsuit coaching as well. Before I moved to Skydive Carolina, I also got involved with Wicked Wingsuits and Tony Suits a little bit. In the beginning, I was just coaching for Wicked Wingsuits, but then Simon Repton actually was the owner of Wicked Wingsuits at the time. He has all these crazy ideas in his head, and one winter he actually sent me down to Tony Suits, and I sat next to Tony and all the amazing sewing ladies he has there, and I spent the winter learning how to make wingsuits. So I did that, and then once I graduated from that program, I guess you could say, Tony, the factory would actually send me, so I had a sewing machine on the other side of the airport in Skydive, Carolina. They would send me the pieces and I would sew them together. And then I was also in charge of the shipping and receiving, as well as like repairing the suits when they would come in and washing them and stuff like that. So I was like the Wicked Wingsuits warehouse for a while, I guess you could say.
That's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. The wingsuit that I have right now, that I fly, I actually made it. So that's pretty cool. So I did that, the whole wingsuit coaching thing, and then I got the miraculous idea to go be a scuba instructor. So I did that for a while, about 3 years. I think I was gone, moved to Vietnam from Skydive, Carolina, and then...
But before, in that 3 years, I know you were in Saba,
yes.
Small island in the Caribbean, is that right?
Yes.
Saba is so small, and I'm from the Caribbean originally, that most people in the Caribbean haven't heard of Saba.
Yeah, it only had 1,800 people on it, I think, and 500 of them were med students from I guess there's an American medical school on the island. Yeah, that's actually where I got my first ideas of wanting to fly.
What triggered that?
I remember when we flew there from St. Martin. It was the first time I had ever been on an otter that wasn't for skydiving. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then you go to land there, and Saba actually has the shortest commercial runway in the entire world. It's only 1,200 feet long. And going in and landing on that runway, and if you look at pictures of the island, it's just like a huge mountain that juts out of the ocean. So you're landing on this tiny runway, with the backdrop of this 3,000 foot tall mountain. And I was just like, whoa. And then I remember saying to myself, if I'm ever a pilot one day, I want to try to land an otter here. So that's still on my list of things to do maybe someday.
Still a lot of twin otters flying around the Caribbean waiting for you if that's what you want to do. How long were you in Saba before you moved to Vietnam?
So I actually went to Vietnam first, and then Thailand, and then to Saba was the last place I was a scuba instructor. I was there for about 1 year and 3 months, something like that.
So it's kind of fearless, Ashley.
Or some would say irresponsible.
I don't think so. I mean, I think there's a status quo that society thinks that we should do, and then there's following your heart and passions and interests. But that doesn't always lead to, the reason why many people don't take those risks is financial security. So how are you able to feel comfortable not necessarily being, I don't want to make assumptions, but, did you have a job waiting for you that, like, I can make income doing this, or I'm just going to do this and we'll find something?
Well, I got kind of lucky with the scuba thing. So I learned how to scuba dive, like I said earlier, that my mom would take me on a lot of vacations growing up. So we frequented Vietnam a lot when I was growing up, especially when I was in my teenage years. We went maybe 2 or 3 times a year. My old passport from them is like full of visas from Vietnam. So I was 12 years old when my mom took me and I learned how to scuba dive. So I got my diving license when I was 12. We actually became really good friends with a guy. His name was Jeremy Steen, and he owned Rainbow Divers, which is one of the biggest dive outfits all over Vietnam. He's got multiple locations. And as I was growing up, he always put the idea in my head of, you should come here when you're older and be an instructor for me. So he was always trying to convince me. And then, I guess I just got to a point, I kept getting it in my head, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to go do it. So I kind of did have a job waiting for me. He helped put me through my instructor rating, IDC, and then he put me to work on one of his little islands called Phuoc at first, and then I moved back to like the main city where he was based out of. And then he gave me a job. It was probably only like a few months after I got my instructor rating. He sent me to manage one of his dive centers on this tiny island of Vietnam called Con Dao. And that was a really cool experience. So I managed the place there. And then, just keep on moving. Then I wanted to go to Thailand, see that for a while, and then the Saba thing.
How did the Saba thing come up? Because that's on the other side of the planet, practically.
I know. I think I was just like online looking for scuba diving jobs. Thailand, they tend not to pay their divers as much. So I was kind of getting tired of, not even really being able to afford a beer for $1 at the end of the day. So I was looking for places that pay a little bit more. In the Caribbean, actually, they tend, I think, to have a little bit higher salaries, I guess you could say. So we found a place that was offering pretty good pay for a dive instructor. The island looked interesting, and mainly it was just the pictures and video that I saw of the dives there, because that's some of the best diving I've ever done. It was amazing. The water's very deep, so there were a lot of sharks and stuff, and the whole thing was a marine park, so it was all protected. There's only a certain number of fishing licenses, so it's not overfished. There's a bunch of wildlife. So yeah, it's just another one of those random, like, oh, hey, this place looks cool. Let's try that.
Amazing. It's admirable that you go, hey, let's go try that, see how that works out. It's also interesting that several things you've said, it's like these little ideas have manifested into so much more. One day I'd like to land a twin otter at Saba. I believe that that's probably going to happen, because one day maybe I'll go to Vietnam and become an instructor, scuba instructor, and that does happen. And it seems like all these little ideations manifest themselves into
Yeah.
you doing
I
this
always
thing.
tell my husband, like, if there's anything I've ever wanted in life, I've gotten it. Like, not in a bad way of saying it, but like, if there's something that I really want to do, I'm gonna do it. So yeah, hopefully, I really hope the Saba thing. I keep talking about it as like when I'm older, maybe we don't need money as much because we've got kids. So like maybe we don't need the money as much and we're on our own. Maybe I could just go fly, even if it's for 6 months, just to say I've done it.
I look forward to messaging you on social media, congratulating you on landing in Saba and that twin otter. Very cool. If you're a fan of the 20-Minute Call, I'd like to invite you to be a member of a budding community with me on Patreon. By becoming a patron of the show, you can join me behind the scenes to discuss options for future guests and gain access to some show swag. It's pretty sweet. Details on how to become a patron can be found in the show notes. Okay, back to the show. So after Saba, back to the U.S.?
Yes.
Because you lived in a van for a while too, is that right?
Yes, so was the van thing. So my boyfriend at the time, we moved back to the States. The dive instructor thing was getting a little bit, we're getting in the age where you're starting to think about what's going to happen later in life and money and those kinds of things. So we went to Houston, actually, to my dad's, and we bought a van and built it, made it really nice. We spent, I think, six or 8 weeks at my dad's, getting it as far along as we could. And then we actually went to his parents' house in Arkansas. His dad was really good at carpentry and stuff, so we went up there, and his dad helped us finish the van. And then we were kind of looking for jobs in the meantime. So, of course, in skydiving, because that's really, the only thing that I could do, the only skill I had at the time. So we both got jobs. He got a job as a videographer, and then I as a tandem instructor. So I didn't have my rating yet, but I went to Cross Keys and I got my tandem rating, and then I started doing tandems then. So I think I spent 2 seasons doing tandems.
I feel like there's something magical that has been happening at Cross Keys for a while. Pico and Nadia, they're amazing people, and they have an amazing community there. So is it right to say sort of you found yourself or found your home there to thrive?
Yeah, I definitely did. Pico gave me a lot of opportunities, especially once it came to the pilot thing. Once he found out that I was going to flight school, he was on me, and he was like, as soon as you're done with your commercial, you have a job. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for him, that's for sure. He taught me so much about like maintenance. I was changing tires with him. I was changing master cylinders for brakes. I was like, you name it. I was helping him and the other mechanics that would come from Alabama. Pico and Nadia, they're great. I really enjoyed cross skis. I think that's probably some of the most fun years that I've had, for sure. I worked there for 4 years, 2 as a tandem instructor and 2 as a pilot. And yeah, I still talk to so many people there. I'm actually trying to go back this summer. I miss it. I miss it a lot.
Did you enjoy being a tandem instructor? It's hard work.
Yes and no. It was hard work. I remember they put me to work too. One day in the middle of the busy season summer, I think I did 18 tandems in one day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I learned a lot. It's always really nice taking people on their first skydive, get to experience that again. But it was hard work. Yeah. I did, I think, 600 or 700 tandems. I might still be doing it now if the pilot thing hadn't have come along.
So what was the tipping point during that process where you're like, I'm gonna enroll in flight school?
There wasn't really. So my boyfriend and I at the time, we moved to Houston, actually. He had gotten a job there that was good pay outside of skydiving. So we moved there, and he started working, and I was kind of in a spot with my life where I didn't really know what to do. The pilot thing, was always at the back of my mind, but it's hard to become a pilot. It costs a lot of money. That's the biggest hurdle. It takes a lot of time. You kind of have to, if you want to get to your commercial, you've got to carve out the time for it. It's really hard to work a full-time job and then go to flight school on the side. It takes forever to finish it. So I actually was looking at becoming an aircraft mechanic. I wanted to stay in aviation. I knew that. But aircraft mechanic school, I could get a loan for. It was cheaper. It was 2 years of school. It's a good job, steady paying. Once you're experienced, especially, some mechanics get paid really well. And I told my mom the idea, and she was like, hell no. She was like, if you're going to do anything in aviation, just become a pilot. She was like, do it. So then I went and I did like a discovery flight. Then it was similar to my first skydive where I was like, yep, okay, I'll do it. So yeah.
Completely hooked.
Yeah. Then I spent the next year and a half. All I did was fly and study.
So you were at Cross Keys 2 years-ish doing tandems, then back to Houston, went through flight training, and then back to Skydive Cross Keys to build time, essentially.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow, what a journey. So then at the end of that time, it's off to Saipan. What was the connection between Cross Keys and going across the globe again? More
adventure. Not wanting to live in the United States. I don't know. I spent most of my life outside of it, so I don't know. I was just looking for something else. I was looking for ways to kind of improve my pilot resume. I never really wanted to be an airline pilot. It's funny because most pilots, they get into it and they're like, I'm going to be an airline pilot. Everyone always asks me when you tell them you're a pilot, what airline do you work for? And I never had an interest in that. I don't really think that it fits my lifestyle. So I was kind of looking for a way to boost hours and maybe try something a little bit different. So then the cargo job opened up, and I also flew skydivers there, but skydiving wasn't as busy, so I spent a lot of time on cargo. It was, an easy job for me to pick up because I had already flown the Caravan. So that was relatively easy. But yeah, most of it was just wanting an adventure, and it was a job opportunity to live on a beautiful island, which I'm an island person, so.
Clearly. And the pictures from Saipan, I mean,
oh my God.
I've only ever heard of Saipan as like this place in the far, distant middle of the Pacific Ocean, but the photos are just beautiful. Spectacular.
Yeah.
What did you fly there?
Caravans, that's it. Actually, no. For skydive, they used Pac 750. So the Pac 750 for skydiving, and then the Caravan 208 for cargo.
I noticed that, obviously I shared in the intro that you flew Amazon packages. I didn't know Amazon even delivered out there. And even McDonald's French fries. And I had to ask that. I wanted to put it in the intro so I wouldn't forget to ask. What's the story with you delivering McDonald's French fries?
So basically everything on the island was imported, right? So what wasn't brought by boat was brought by aircraft. And the company that I worked for had a contract with USPS. So that's where the Amazon packages came in, and of course, regular USPS mail. We delivered a lot of dog food. And yeah, McDonald's French fries, Pizza Hut, like pepperoni and stuff like that. So basically, I guess it would come to Guam by boat or somehow, or maybe, no, I guess it came to Guam by, a 737 or something. And then, we would take them from Guam to Saipan, McDonald's French fries.
How funny. And it's crazy. When I first read that, I thought that you were like delivering a package of fries, with a Big Mac, like DoorDash on over to Saipan from Guam. But clearly I didn't think that all the way through. I'm not very bright.
Yeah, we pretty much took everything. Yeah, I remember one time I was ordering pizza from the Pizza Hut there, and they ran out of pepperoni. And so then, like, the next few days at work, I'm like, I'm looking on the manifest, like, where's the pepperoni shipment?
Inside information. You'll know when you should go back for sure.
Yeah.
That's wild. Of your flying adventures that you've had, I don't want to say any highlights. It's like asking someone what their favorite skydive is, but in this journey, because it's been so compressed, right? 6 years from novice to commercial pilot of multi-million-dollar type aircraft with a major organization like Skydive Dubai. When you reflect on that trajectory, anything that really stands out, or like, wow, I can't believe I got through that, or I read that one of the hardest things you went through was getting your instrument rating. But what's been the hardest part of this journey? And what has been maybe the most surprising?
The hardest part, I would say, was probably the training. Yeah, especially the IFR stuff. I was flying sometimes. I was doing like a 141 school. So there's 141 and 61, depending, 141 entails more ground and stuff like that. So I went to a 141 school, and the training was intense. I spent a lot of time on the ground with instructors. Sometimes I was doing 2-3 lessons a day. And then when I was flying, once I got cleared for solo, sometimes, especially cross countries, I was flying 6 hours a day, so it was really exhausting. And then the studying, man, I spent so much time in those books just to pass the tests and the check rides, the oral exams, all of that. So that was originally the hardest. I guess other hard parts, just, making sure that you stay. A lot of pilots, like you said, or a lot of people in general get big egos, and I think it's important in aviation, both skydiving and the flying side, that you don't get any sort of ego, because it's so quickly that everything can be taken away from you. We've seen it all over the news recently with all these accidents that happen. It can be hard, to stay humble and to remember what you're actually doing. And then as far as surprising goes, I think maybe just the opportunities that are out there, I'm obviously most comfortable in skydiving. I love flying skydivers. I grew up on the drop zone. I lived on the drop zone since I was 18, in a little purple camper with black peace signs all over it, so I'm just at home with skydivers. So it's definitely my favorite thing to do in flying, but there's just so much opportunity as a pilot, especially once you, have turbine time and have multi-engine time. And once you've experienced some of those things, it's just, the whole world is out there, really. Literally, you could do anything.
We're now going to move into where we first started, as you're at Skydive Dubai now. Are you mostly flying jumpers? Are you doing anything outside of flying jumpers as well?
No, here I'm just flying jumpers.
And are you over the Palm and the desert, or one or the other generally?
Generally, I'm at the desert. I haven't actually started my training for the Palm yet. They're still a little busy there. I actually like the desert. It's super chill. The Palm is tandems, go, 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 go. But the desert is really chill. We get shutdowns and more relaxed environment. I've flown at the Palm with other pilots a couple of times. But right now, I've just been flying at the desert. I'm really enjoying it. I think I'll probably start at the Palm in the next couple of months or so.
Have you had any pinch me moments like, whoa, 10 years ago I was jumping here and I said, one day I'm going to work here, another manifestation that has come true, like, have you gone, oh my God, like, has there been a moment to go, how did this happen?
It happens all the time. I had one the other day when we were going from Nad El Shuba, from the maintenance hangar to the desert. You know, we fly there. It's about a 10-minute flight or so, and fly at 1,000 feet over the desert. You know, there's camels running, and I had a co-pilot with me, so I was just like, man, you know, sometimes I have these moments where I am like, how did I get here? Like, flying over the desert in a twin otter at 1,000 feet, looking down at these camels running around in the desert. Like, yeah, it's amazing. I had them a lot in Saipan because it was just so beautiful. All of those times you look out the window and it's just like mesmerizing, you know? So yeah, all the time.
I'll tell you what's refreshing is sprinkled throughout your social media is gratitude. Oh, you know, it's this appreciation for the views, or, you know, living on an island and waking up to tremendous beauty. And it's not like you're going through life. It's like you're going and enjoying it in the present. Do I have that right?
I definitely try to. I try to stay grateful for everything that I have. You know, I have worked hard, but I've also been lucky, you know, with the opportunities that I've gotten, and I definitely don't take those for granted. I feel super lucky to be here at Skydive Dubai. I know that there are a lot of pilots that apply here and don't get the job. I'm very grateful that I was picked for this adventure because I really love it here. I love the Otter. This is, you know, the first place I've flown the Otter. So I started skydiving in Z Hills, and they use otters there. So, you know, I was always around them. But now flying them, yeah, I love it. And yeah, I feel super, super lucky to be part of Skydive Dubai. Because
it's such a coveted position to build time to fly those otters. I mean, I think I remember, I mean, those planes are not even that old. What did they say? What about you said yes? You know, what about your personality or your professionalism, whatever that is, you versus anybody else?
They didn't really say. I think a lot of it was from my turbine time. So just, you know, I have, I think, almost 2,800 hours now, and 2,300 or more are turbine hours. So I started, you know, Pico from Skydive Cross Keys, man, he gave me such a good opportunity. I flew the 182 for just a short amount of time, and then I started training with him in the super van, and I started flying that super van. Man, I got so lucky. I flew it so much earlier than a lot of people get the opportunity to. So I think that's what really stood out, was that the majority of my hours in general are turbine time with the turbine engine. And then that also the majority of my hours, 95% of my hours or more, is flying jumpers. And they really look for that jump flying experience here because it's, you know, like you said, they're so coveted and they're so well known that they are looking for the best, really.
As you were explaining that, and you said, oh, you know, I was really lucky. I don't think that you're lucky. In listening to you and reading about your life, it seems that you've just had the willingness just to say yes. Oh, that sounds cool. Yes. Oh, that's across the world for most people? No, that's way too far. Yes. It's just, that sounds great. Yes. You know, not like, well, you know, how does this interfere or connect with my long-term trajectory? It's like no hesitation. Yes. Sounds great. So, I mean, I think there's lessons to be learned from you there, Ashley.
Yeah. I don't really have a, you know, set path. I'm not really one to like make plans like that. For me, it's like I know I'm going to be flying airplanes in 10 years, but where I'll be or what I'll be doing, I have no idea.
This podcast is sponsored by Beyond Marketing, the digital marketing agency for the skydiving industry. Now, I'm not a fan of lots of ads during a podcast. I mean, who likes ads? So I'll stop talking about how marvelously wonderful Beyond Marketing is. But if you're curious about what the amazing people of Beyond Marketing do to help drop zones and manufacturers thrive, then you should check out their website at dropzone.marketing. That's dropzone.marketing. On your social recently, there is this spectacular drone display in the sky, and I think you would only see things like that in Dubai. Maybe on the 4th of July in New York City, maybe. Just things are so much bigger and brighter. There's so much happening there. It's just, it's like one week you might see the most spectacular thing you've ever seen in your life, and then that's topped the following week. Have you seen anything in Dubai that has just sort of put your hand on the forehead going, I cannot believe this is reality?
I mean, I think it's like living in Dubai as an expat, at least, not growing up here is like, I think every day is like that, it's just life in general here. I don't know that I'll be able to leave anytime soon. It's life here is so easy. Like the other night, it's kind of funny, but the other night I was cooking and I realized I had forgotten broccoli. And I was like, shit, I need broccoli. So then I got on one of the apps. I ordered broccoli from the store, like on our block. And in 10 minutes, broccoli was delivered to my apartment. Like I ordered something on Amazon yesterday and it came in 6 hours. Anything you want is just here. And like you said, like everything they do here is big. There is a normal side to life, though. A lot of people, you still, you got the kids, you go to school, you do your normal people stuff. But there's a lot of opportunity here for some pretty great things.
Care to share anything you're dreaming about next? Not that what you're doing now isn't spectacular, but it seems like you're always manifesting something other than landing in Saba.
I don't think I've gotten to that point being here. I mean, I've been here, I think, a little over 6 months now. And this is actually one of the first places that I've been in the last 10 years that I'm not thinking that far ahead yet. I really, really enjoy it here. And like I said earlier, my husband, we've got kids. We're kind of looking for the long term now. It's a really good place to raise kids. It's really safe. The job is really good. And we're kind of thinking about maybe staying for a little while, maybe get the kids out of school. So yeah, for now, there's nothing grand going on. I'm just really enjoying what I'm doing. I really love it here. Kind of keep the new idea on the back burner.
How old are your kids?
They are my husband's kids biologically, but they are 12 and 14.
Wow, amazing. Tell me something, Ashley. Earlier this summer, I was watching the movie Fly, and boom, there you were. In my research, I realized, you were fairly embedded with the base community, with Apex Base and Jimmy. Did you know that you were going to be in this film? Obviously, you knew that they were shooting. You saw the camera work. And what was it like for you to watch that movie?
So they told us that they were shooting for Netflix. I just went there for a first base course. Some friends from Cross Keys convinced me to go. I was kind of going through some things at the time, so I was like, going to jump off a bridge seems like a great idea. So I signed up for a first base course and with Apex and showed up there. And the camera crew, they were really good friends with Jimmy and Marta. They were there filming the whole first base course as part of this documentary. I didn't really realize the extent of the documentary at the time, but we did sign, waivers and stuff. So they said that if the documentary does come out, they said originally I think it was for Netflix, but I think it ended up being on Nat Geo instead. 3 years later, people start messaging me like, hey, did I see you in that? A lot of people didn't even know that I started base jumping. So I think it was a little surprising to some people. They're like, is that you? But that was a really cool experience as well, getting to meet them and hang out with them. They're really, really good filmmakers. They do a lot of, different kinds of projects and stuff like that. And they were really nice, genuine people, fun to be around. And we had a really good time with them. So,
what was it like for you to have watched it, knowing that you were there for a small piece of it? But obviously the entire story arc you probably weren't aware of, and then to see it in, fully produced. For me, it was tough to watch, honestly, because, and I expressed this with a couple of other my guests, this push pull between living your full life and then sort of getting a little bit more conservative, and how do you push and then pull back as we age and we have family in our lives, kids. Oh man, it was gut-wrenching.
Yeah, it was incredibly emotional. I think a lot of the aspect of it also changed when Jimmy passed. I think, it kind of changed maybe a little bit of the trajectory. That it was quite an emotional documentary, going from, of course, the first experience of learning how to do it, and then being in the sport for a long time, and like you said, and juggling, starting a family or maintaining a family, and trying to stay safe at the same time but not lose something that you love with your entire being. Literally, we all skydivers, it's part of us, But I think it's a struggle with all, people that live in these high risk, worlds like we do. I think it's a little bit of a balance that, some people have. Some struggle, obviously, more than others, but...
Sure. And did I see right that you went there and you trained at Apex Base to be a base jumper, but then you helped and you became an instructor there too, is that right?
No, I didn't do any base instructing. I only went to the bridge twice. I have about 50 jumps that I did while I was there. I did one jump in Moab, off of a cliff there. Yeah, the majority of the jumps were just off the bridge. Yeah, I didn't do any instructing. I'm not quite there yet. I actually, since my last base trip, because I went on one after it was filmed, but I haven't done any base jumping since then. So it's kind of hard out here.
I can imagine. Tell me, Ashley, what does a typical day look like for you as a pilot at Skydive Dubai?
Well, here it's super nice. We have a lot of days off, so it kind of depends. If I'm working, we usually have to be at the drop zone either at 8 or 9. We have some special projects sometimes. So like right now we have the Royal Air Force here, and they've been doing some demo stuff. They jump with smoke and do all these pretty aerial views and stuff. So they've been here. So sometimes we have special projects. We have to be there a little bit earlier, but mostly between 8 and 9. So we show up an hour before. You pre-flight, tell the mechanics how much fuel we need, and then we wait for manifests from the respective drop zone to let us know what time we need to be there, how much fuel we need. And then we depart from here. It takes 10 minutes to get to the desert, about 6 minutes to get to the Palm. So you leave in time to do your pre-flight, engine checks, and then you depart. And then as soon as you land, you pick up your first load and then go until they tell you to stop.
I'll tell you what jumped out at me with what you were just saying is you tell the mechanics how much fuel you need. Whereas at any other drop zone, you're climbing up the ladder to the wings and you're fueling that plane yourself. I
kind of miss that, actually. They won't let us touch anything here. So I kind of miss being involved in that stuff. But it is kind of nice.
Fascinating. Last question, and I ask all my guests this, is I'm curious about crossroads moments in life. What I mean by a crossroads moment is we're on a certain path, and then while we're living that path, we might meet someone that we're not thinking would result in anything, but the chance meeting of that person might take our lives in a completely different trajectory. Or if it's not meeting someone where you said yes to something, what looks like it might have been a very small decision, or maybe you said no to something. But had you not said no, had you not said yes, or had you not met that person, your life looks so different than it does today. What's a key crossroads moment for you?
I think the biggest one would maybe be back to where all of this started. I was on this path to be in the military and, follow my mom's footsteps in that way. And then I met Kirk Knight and those guys. And then I met Con Hildebrand, which was the big guy on the packing mat in Z Hills when I first started. And I think most of it is just getting involved in skydiving and the people that I met there, because then obviously I stopped the college thing and then somehow ended up here. And I think that's really what started it. I don't think I would be a pilot if it wasn't for skydiving. I'm not sure it would have ever crossed my mind, but just being around, aviation. I don't have anyone in my family. I'm the first pilot in my family. I think really just skydiving, like they always say, the skydiving changed my life, I think it really did.
I was going to say that you should be in parachutist for that, for sure. Ashley, I know you don't feel you're just living your normal life. But your life is inspiring because there was something you said during this interview. You said, there's a whole world out there. I think oftentimes many of us, depending on how we were raised, we kind of have a ceiling. There's sort of that career path and, I'm going to work towards this and then I'm going to, try to make money and live happily ever after. And gosh, you have just followed your heart and what interests you. Look where it's gotten you and look where it's taking you. It's super inspiring.
Thanks, Mom.
I would love to meet your mom. She seems like, if I'm not mistaken, Colonel Christine Gold. She seems like a rock star.
She is.
Well, Ashley, thank you for giving me your time. I'm fascinated by the tapestry of people that make up the skydiving industry because everyone is living such amazing stories, and yours is definitely one of them. So thank you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it. I was surprised when you sent me the message.
Yeah. Well, well deserved. Thank you again. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks so much. Have a good one.
Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to the 20-Minute Call podcast. Please do follow us on your podcast app so you always have the latest episode, which is released every Monday. If you want to contact the team, our email address is podcast@beyondmarketing.xyz. This episode was edited and engineered by Garnet Znydrick of the YouTube channel Blue Skies Fun Days. Thanks for listening and join us next week for our next episode.